See, the reason that most people simply don't get started with new habits or new projects, I think the majority of people is mostly afraid about what other people might think about them. I think, and I ask many people about this, and people come up with excuses. That's also a thing, but those excuses, I think they have somewhere, they are rooted more or less in peer pressure, or that they have to keep up with the so-called Joneses. I don't know, what do you think? In case you are watching and you think, yeah Dylan, but I'm also afraid and I don't push things through, you know, let me know what holds you back, you know. I'm very interested, without any judgment, you know. If you watch my vlogs, you know, I'm always, or it's all for me, life is all about communication. I just want to absorb people. Also, when, you know, when an animal's dawdling around, I just want to crawl in their minds. You know, what are they thinking, what are they doing, and why are they doing it? Yesterday also I met a squirrel. I'm thinking, you know, he's so busy staring into the nothing. And it's also the same with cows. If you look at a cow, you know, they're in the meadow, eating, just standing over there, you know, just get along with the program. So if you would contact me, just maybe leave a comment down below. What holds you back, you know? What is holding people back of living a life also of more freedom, fulfillment, you know? Why not? Why not? What is the worst thing that can happen to you, you know? I talk about a lot of stuff, you know, in my vlogs, and I'm not gonna rattle up constantly the same stuff. But I also know a lot of people not watching or binge watching my videos yet, so perhaps I will repeat it a few times. But if you could be aware of or have a little bit more faith in yourself, what would you do, you know? What would you do? Would you just give up your apartment and just start traveling? Would you? But also, you know, when you would have more freedom, what would you do? What would you do? What would you actually really do? You ever thought about this? You know, what would you do? Because I can't come to I came to this thought, or yeah, already a few weeks ago, or many times are wrestling with this thing. Well, what would people do if they would have the level of freedom that I have, you know? If you don't have disciplines in place, or some sort of a training structure or eating pattern or whatever, what would you do? And if you would replace your job or your school thing, you know, that you know already when you go to school you're gonna have a job and then you get a mortgage, now maybe a woman, a child, maybe a couple of divorces, and that's it, done deal. But you know, you ever thought about this? If you would not be, or would be walking the line of quote-unquote normality, what would you do? If you would have unlimited amounts of money, what would you do? You would go freakishly nuts. And boundaries, what do you know about boundaries? And this is another thing. And when people talk to me about that they never would cheat, the majority of people, they would have never access to any kind of, let's say, more above average possibilities of having interactions with the opposite sex or same sex. I don't know what you're into, but the thing is, you understand, you know, you need to live life to actually to start understanding your own boundaries better. I really believe in this. You cannot say I would never cheat if you only had, now let's say you had maximum 5 girlfriends. Yeah, maybe this is the one that you're now with. Or if you're a woman, then you know, you think, yeah, my boyfriend is everything to me. You know, always also consider a little bit the age, right? Well, what age are you? And I'm sharing, you know, I fell in love when I was young. Even lived with a woman also when I was in my 20s. And this is no disrespect to her, but I'm very happy that I never that we never made children together. And it's not towards her. I would have missed so much stuff, and probably also would never speak on the video like this. So I would, you know, have missed a whole outlet, an exhaust of, and maybe also that I'm reaching you now with the possibility that you're gonna do something with the strategies from your phone. See, I know I have to put it in a better framework, you know, and I'm looking for this angle, how to make this clear to people who have phones. Everybody has a phone. The majority of the people on the planet have phones, and still they go to their job simply because they don't know. And the thing is, I understand you can see once in a while those ads, you know, I'm 40 plus and now I'm jumping in AI, and then you have my 30 days course or whatever, all that kind of normal herd behavior stuff. You don't want this. I narrow it down from experience. I walk both lines. I started selling when I was freakishly 11, and this is not to brag, and also had a lot of offline projects, you know, so I've been there, done that. And I said this before, when I was 30 I didn't know anything about doing things online, and because I lost everything, I was pretty much forced to get in, because I went to a country where I didn't speak the language. And not only this, now I'm almost 47, within 2 weeks, doing everything from the phone. That is a level of freedom that I could not even imagine, that you could do everything from the freaking phone. So I walked other people their ways. I'm not the kind of guy who grew up with this, you know, in a society where everybody is actually, and now everybody's on the phone. They're gonna invite each other to nice meetings, and they're gonna be on TikTok and watch my videos. But you know, I didn't grow up with this thing, and because there is such a huge amount of tools, I think people also drown in what to choose. And I put this toolbox together, and there are only a few tools. You don't need a boatload of tools, and this is another thing. All the tools that I'm using, they're over a decade already available. And then I'm going to tell you something else. When it's about AI, I only use Google Gemini, Gemini Pro. And the thing is, and I know a lot of people say, why don't you do ChatGPT? You know what? The people who speak a lot, those famous people, they also, the majority of those people, they also say they have stake in the ChatGPT thing. They invested. So it's the same with this McDonald's guy, right? This is a rich guy. I don't know what, this gray guy, he looks like a very nice grandfather of everybody. I don't know his name, but he also says that he eats every day McDonald's. Of course, he has stakes in it, like in Coca-Cola. But anyway, why do I use Google Gemini? Simply because I think that a search engine that collected over decades of so much information, I don't believe that ChatGPT has access to that huge amount of information. And not only this, over the years, you know. And that's another thing, huh? I started this vlog, and that you simply have to start, and you all start like an idiot. So if you use that thought, you know, that you know, ChatGPT is not as long as Google on this planet. And I'm not saying that they're idiots, far from that. You know, that's not what I'm saying. The thing is, at time, how long do you put in the effort? You know, but when people also, for example, I'm doing my daily regime, plus so this morning I didn't do a lot of calisthenics, but I did my 11-kilometer run. But the thing is, there's every day I'm moving, and I said also something, you know, you start as an idiot. And I'm saying those things very black and white, maybe a little bit rude for some people, but it is true. And you should be to get over this, you know, that you're quote unquote afraid to get started with something. You know, just start and be content with the fact you know less than the person who actually already is 10 years in the game. But never underestimate that your vision on the planet is unique. Your vision is unique, but you have to dig it out and just start doing it. You cannot read hundreds of books and then tons of courses, and then one day you think you're an expert and then you start. That's not how it works. And trust me, I went through a boatload of courses, and then you start. Well, then it seems to be a little bit different. And especially when you go on some sort of forums, you know, where you can buy, I need to check actually, where you can buy courses where people find out all kind of loopholes. You know, don't fall for those things. I fell for those things as well in the past. You know, they find loopholes, and then 1 year when they drained out. And I also think like this: when you run into ads that somebody gonna get, you know, charges, I don't know what, $27. So if you or $97, and they claim to be multi-millionaires, why would they even bother to sell that kind of stuff? I don't believe. That's why I'm giving away everything for free. And my real intent is to filter out the real doers, and I want to work with those real doers. That's the only reason. That is really the transparent reason. So when I would hit the 75 years old on this planet, maybe I am working with you, you know, because you start putting in the work, the 50 minutes a day or the 30 minutes a day, or let's say you go freakishly nuts, 2-3 hours a day. Can you imagine what you can, how many audiences you can build? You know, that it's all about, you know, reaching people, bring out your message. And not only this, carve out your own purpose. And I explained this before, so I'm going to explain it once more. And probably I will repeat it multiple times later on in the future, nearby future. But the thing is, when you start building, let's say 5 audiences, and 5 audiences. So you're interested in cats, I'm just saying cats and dogs. So you're interested in cats and dogs, a little bit about pizza, burgers, and I don't know about scooters, electric scooters. But then you start building the content, and at one point you get fed up with, for example, electric scooters, so you know what you're not obsessed with. You know, like this, you carve out your purpose. And I think if you would really follow the strategies what I'm actually sharing, and this sounds very basic, but never underestimate that basic thinking and also logical thinking. I think it's very logical. If you have 5 audiences and you get fed up with one, it means that you're not that interested. If you're very interested and obsessed with something, you know, let's say you're a skateboard, totally freakishly obsessed with it, but you're only freakishly obsessed with, you know, doing all the exercises, you know, and then you start writing an ebook or something, how to do, I don't know those tricks, and then you write an ebook or whatever. You start making maybe 10 videos, and you think, oh no, I'm also fed up with this and like this, you know. Especially when you're young, just start figuring it out. You know, when I was young, and I'm going to talk about this, I was not obsessed with money, but I was obsessed with the thrill of that somebody gave you money. And I talked about that I knocked the first door and asked a person to clean his freaking bike, you know, and I had only a sponge, and then I asked, do you have a bucket too? But you know, the fact that somebody else did something and then also gave me money, yeah, that made something loose inside of me. But also, when it's about, see, there are a lot of people on this planet, they are chasing money. I know this because I also hired a lot of people that were money focused. I had once a conversation with a person. He started working for me. He wanted he asked me at one point, let's get into this and this project, and how much do you need? I think he needed around I don't know what, 25,000. And the thing is, and then I said no, I don't know really, because blah blah blah. And then he got a little bit obsessed and upset, and I could see, you know, his red face. And I said, and I told him, if our relationship is going to be focused on money, Then, so then I actually said, you know, we have to be very careful. But I pushed it through, and of course it went wrong, and at one point he blamed me for everything. But anyway, besides that, this is not, and like I always say, I'm not emotional attached to anything, and a lot of people do owe me money, but you know, I'm not even thinking, I'm not focused on that. The thing is, I'm using those examples as you know, how I'm thinking about the fact that you definitely should not chase money, because you're gonna end up, let's assume that you're now 20, or maybe you're 20 or 25, and you start focusing on money. Well, you're going to end up in a suit with a scruffy beard and fluffy hair. Of course, when you get onto the trading floor in New York, and I don't know what, see, I don't know about those details, but I do believe that you would feel way much better that you control your own time. Also, when you would get a, let's say, start living this digital nomad style, and you constantly do freelancing stuff for other people, you're still attached to somebody else. And by creating audiences, you can do when and what you want. Of course, in the boundaries of common sense. I think you do understand this, you know. You're not gonna go, you understand. So the thing is, building audiences. Think about this. And I do think that a lot of people don't understand what the value is of, you know, owning an audience. Yeah, maybe you understand, okay, you got 1,000 or maybe 100,000 followers on Instagram, or maybe 500,000, but there are also a lot of people who don't know how to monetize. And it's not only about monetizing, but also how to communicate with people. And that's why I am so obsessed with communicating with people offline and online, you know, to improve, let's say, the humanity of converting audience into that they get the value, that they also understand the value. Not only get the value by giving you money, but also getting it. So for example, when I share the things about audiences, and I do also understand when it's about money, sometimes you need to charge money so people have stake in the game. But I think if I keep on rattling like this, maybe after 2-3 years people start to understand my stake in the game is my time. That is your stake in the game. We're playing over here the long game. You know, you're not playing the game of investing $27. We're playing the game of life. And when you invest 15 minutes a day for the next 30 days, that is your stake in the game. But that's only possible, you would only see that as a stake. And in the casino, you're also not going over there if you didn't have a stake in the game. You know, that's the only reason that people go over there. People need to have stake in the game. But when people start really realizing the time is ticking, that is your stake in the game. So when you invest $27 in a freaking outdated loophole for $27, and you would spend 7 days on this, if you lose not the $27 but the 7 days, you don't get it back. And when you build audiences, you started building, for example, the profile picture, cover picture, 5 posts on, let's say, on a Facebook post. It is yours, it's over there. You didn't lose it, you start doing something. So I do believe that has way much more value than jumping into a loophole. And there's another side on jumping into loopholes. I did jump into loopholes, and they're very short term. So there is not, and then you have to find another loophole. Building audiences evergreen. Never underestimate this. And you know what? This guy who speaks a lot with his arms, you know, he does like this. And the thing is, what he also said, you know, he said something about the glasses, that it would replace possibly the mobile phones. But also, when you really think about it, if we go to that kind of era, you know, that things are done with glasses and people are totally surrounded, and I don't know what, maybe the social media post can look like a 3D thing, I don't know. can you imagine what you can do with the audiences? So those audiences that you would build from today is not too late. And that's another thing. A lot of people maybe think, yeah, but Alan, I'm too late. No, you're not too late. You're never too late. You always start as an idiot. Never underestimate this. And I also said in another short, or I had a little bit of copy for the thumbnail. It's like, nobody is perfect, and we're all nobodies. Never underestimate that. Anyway, time is ticking. Time is ticking. I'm actually thinking what to say more. Nothing. Anyways, subscribe if you like what I'm saying. Unsubscribe when you don't like what I'm saying and that you take my videos for granted. Because that's another thing, right? When people subscribe and don't watch your stuff, that is also not good. So unsubscribe. Everything is reality, right? And I understand also the way I talk. Not a lot of people would like to listen to me the whole day. I understand that too. But I always know that people who I speak offline with and face to face, they always walk away happy, and this is not to brag. And that also gives me some sort of confidence. I see that the views per 48 hours are increasing. We're at the moment, or we're 11,000 per 48 hours. That, you know, and then I think like, yeah, that's 5,000 people who saw my smug, or, you know, heard my voice. So still a lot of people. No, it's not the millions yet, I know, but it's better than zero. And the amount of negative comments are pretty much below 0.1 or something. I think I only had 3 negative comments the whole year last year. Oh no, this year, because we're not at, I already, you know, I have to stop talking. Anyway, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and yeah, I need to start sharing on the .com Baron website, which I will. Starting with a very simple explanation video, how to build audience. But I'm really thinking about how to put it in some sort of understandable framework that people will understand the value, you know. And when you also think about this guy who speaks a lot with his hands, you know, that he also says, you know, it goes maybe somewhere that people do everything from their glasses. And what would that do, you know, with the social media stuff? And maybe if people constant with their face into your content. Think about that. So you're way, if you would think like this, then you're in an early bird. So get started. Anyway, ciao for now.